This is Street Knowledge with Chris Graham.
Welcome to the podcast. Chris Graham going solo here on Monday. It's rivalry week, Virginia Tech, the Commonwealth Clash on Friday. Short week for both programs getting ready for the big game on Friday afternoon, 3:30 p.m. I'll be down in Lane Stadium covering the game for AFP in the press box. My first time in the press box at Virginia Tech. We had Scott German cover a couple of games down there for us in recent years. But my first chance to sit in the press box there. I've been to a couple games in Lane Stadium. In fact, I like to say I'm 1-0 all time for UVA in Lane Stadium. I was there in '98, the last time Virginia won in Lane Stadium, 20 years ago. Well, it's hard to believe. That day was a warm November day. It was like in the mid 70s that day after Thanksgiving. It was a Saturday after Thanksgiving. We still played on Saturday back then, and mid 70s. It was beautiful weather. Tech was up 29-7 at halftime. And Virginia came back and won 36-32, and that was the 8th win in 12 games in the series for Virginia at that stage. Tech's won 18 of 19 since, including the 14 straight that we all know about. So that's the stakes, and here's the other stakes. So Virginia has not won this game since 2003, but the 2018 Virginia football team is a 4-point favorite on the road against the 2018 Virginia Tech team, and I like saying it that way. I was saying it that way, and then I saw the transcript of Bronco Mendenhall's press conference today. He's talking about the same thing. 2018. This is this year. This isn't the history. This isn't 20 years of football history. This is this year's team playing this year's Tech team. And so you want to throw the history out the door. And I like that mentality, but you can't throw the history out the door. You just can't. And that's where I'll start breaking this one down for you. If you're coming here for X and O's, by the way, you're probably coming to the wrong place. I do games on TV and on the radio. Southern Conference VMI games. I'm the play-by-play guy. I do some color commentary, but I'm not going to tell you that this A-gap blitz works and this B-gap blitz doesn't, and that the 5 technique guy is having trouble getting through the line because of various issues. That's not my strength, but I'll tell you, you'll hear some numbers here that'll be interesting to you. I can really break down some numbers for you as we go through this one, but first we'll do some pop psychology, and maybe that could be helpful too. You hear me talk about this a lot if you listen to this podcast a lot, so you're probably not hearing anything new, but if you're new to the podcast or you haven't been here for a while, this game is a game that, 2003, last time Virginia won. Virginia Tech has won 14 straight years, and it's not like they've been the better team for 14 straight years. This will be the 3rd time in 5 years that Virginia Tech needs a win to keep its season alive. In 2014 and 2015, Tech entered this game with 5-6 records. Needed to win that game to get to 6-6, get into a bowl. And this year's Tech team is 4-6. Needs to win this one. They've got a conditional game scheduled now with Marshall. We talked about that on the podcast Saturday. Actually got a game scheduled with Marshall. There is a buyout in there. There's a lot of money involved on the table. Even if they don't play the game, there's a lot of money involved on the table for Virginia Tech. And they won't play if they lose this game. But if they win this game against Virginia, then they'll play Marshall next week. Chance to keep their season alive again. Go to a bowl for what would be the 26th straight season. So that's some stakes there. But this is a game for these two sides that Virginia Tech just won. Even when they've not been the better team necessarily. I talked about this is the 3rd time in 5 seasons that these two teams have played with Virginia Tech needing to win to extend the season. 2014, 2015, those first 2 times. Tech wins 24-20 in 2014 down in Lane Stadium, 2015 23-20 in Charlottesville. Now, Scott German covered the game for us in 2014. I was actually covering a UVA basketball tournament up in the Barclays Center where the ACC tournament would eventually be held. Of course, we won that last year. I've got some confetti on my desk as I'm talking here right now from that event. But in 2014, I was there, and I remember covering that game and also watching the game on my iPad, the football game that is on the iPad. Virginia led. You might remember 3 minutes ago in that game, took a lead, and you don't play the prevent defense that you normally play. And fans always, why are you playing prevent defense? All you're doing is giving them 10 yards a shot, making them go down the field. Well, the reason you play prevent defense is because you make them take 8 and 10 yards and play instead of 50 on a play, and that's what happened in that game. And Tech got a long pass, eventually scored. Virginia had the ball last. You might remember, was it Matt Johns was the quarterback? Broke a play off, scored on a long scramble, but called back by a penalty. I was sitting in the Barclays Center in Brooklyn That basketball game ended before the football game ended, and we were delayed getting Tony Bennett to come in for his post-game presser. I think that was the night. It wasn't the Rutgers game. I'm trying to think in that tournament who we had played in that first round. Maybe it was Rutgers in that ugly game, that 45-26 game. Oh, it was just an ugly game. But so we're waiting for Tony Bennett to get back for the presser, and all of a sudden, and the press room was located next door to the UV locker room, and we hear a loud roar go up, and our iPad was obviously 20 seconds behind the TV broadcast, and so looking around, there was only one other reporter there. Maybe Virginia just scored because we're sitting beside the Virginia locker room. There's this loud roar, and we look at the iPad, and by God, Matt Johns is running in for a long touchdown. Called back. So, of course, that's the way things go. Virginia loses that game 24-20. The next year, 2015, which was Mike London's last game. Mike London news coming up later in this podcast. Frank Beamer's last game in Virginia. So two coaches coaching their last regular season game, as it turns out, for their programs. And Virginia twice in that fourth quarter in Charlottesville had touchdown leads on Virginia Tech. Tech tied it. Virginia took a lead again. Tech tied it. Eventually, Tech took the lead with it was under 2 minutes to go, a minute 50 to go, scored a field goal. And then Virginia had the ball last. And, of course, what happens? They don't do anything with it. And so lose that game. In the last 5 years of this series, there have been those two games that were close. Virginia had leads late in both. And then two 10-point losses for Virginia, and then a 52-10 loss in Bronco Mendenhall's first year. That game that we all felt like, at least the fans, we all felt like that Virginia, maybe Bronco didn't take the game as seriously. But that was the silly game where Matt Johns and Kurt Binkert were shuttled in play for play. That two-quarterback system that was destined not to work, but they tried it anyway and didn't work. And so last year's game was 10-0. Virginia was decimated on the offensive line. Couldn't move the ball. That was the Virginia team that averaged 92.5 yards per game rushing, just an anemic offense. It's still, somehow, they won 6 games. Give them credit for that. But, Tech got the early lead and it just kind of sat back. It was kind of like a soccer match. I've been a soccer announcer for ESPN, at least I was this year, and it felt like, they got the early lead and they just kind of kicked the ball around the field the rest of the game, knowing that Virginia was not going to be able to score. And that's what that felt like. That game last year in Charlottesville, that's what that felt like. But those were previous year's teams. This 2018 Virginia team versus this 2018 Virginia Tech team. When you're favored by 4 on the road, what Vegas is saying is that you, on a neutral field, you'd be a 7-point favorite, and on your home field, you'd be a 10-point favorite. And I think, you look at these teams, and I think that's where they are right now. Virginia's 7-4, first time since 1992 they come into this game with a better record than Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech at 4-6. The Hokies have lost 4 straight, but even that has an asterisk beside it. You got to remember, they had to have everything fall the right way for them to beat North Carolina in Chapel Hill, a bad North Carolina team. Got 2 wins this season. One of those just last week over Western Carolina. 2-win Carolina team, at the time a 1-win Carolina team back on October 13th, had a 19-14 lead 6 minutes ago. First and goal at the 2. Fumbles the ball at the 1. Virginia Tech drives, and it was recovered at the 2. And then Virginia Tech drives 98 yards in the next 5 minutes, 30 seconds. I think it was 30 seconds ago when the Hokies finally scored the touchdown to win 22-19. I mean, everything had to go right there. If Carolina scores, obviously that game's over. 26-14, that game's over. And even then, it took the Hokies forever to get down the field and score those winning points. So if not for that, it's a 6-game losing streak because they had gotten blown out the week before that loss to Carolina by Notre Dame. And so this is a Virginia Tech team that's 1-4 at home this season. The one win was over William & Mary. And so, yeah, this is not – I mean, this is – those two teams, the 2014 and 2015 teams, were 5-6 going into the big game here. This is by far the worst team we've seen out of Virginia Tech since the early 90s. Those teams that almost got Beamer fired before he finally got things moving in the right direction. This is how bad this team has been. Breaking down the numbers, I mean, these are some shocking numbers when you look at Virginia Tech. This team, since Beamer and Bud Foster rebuilt the program, it took them 6 years to get there. That 6th year, they finally got into a bowl. It took them that long to get that program from where it had been, which was, the Bill Dooley years were pretty good back in the 80s, but then there were issues. There was scandal. Beamer takes over. They're on probation, so he's behind the 8 ball already. But they rebuilt it on special teams and defense. The offense will score enough. In fact, the special teams and defense helped the offensive numbers look better. But the Virginia Tech team was built especially on defense. Well, this year's Tech team is giving up 436.5 yards per game. That's 117.2 yards per game more than the Hokies did in 2017, back when they were ranked second in the ACC in total defense. The Hokies were also second in the ACC in points allowed last year. Fewest points allowed, 14.8. This year, 31.7. And then the last 4, those numbers have gotten worse. 463.5 yards a game, 42.5 points per game. So these are just, and I'm looking at my story, and I wrote the word yards there. It's 42.5 points per game. So I'm going to be editing that right now as we talk. Some live editing. That's like listening to paint dry, right? As far as that goes. But got to do it while I'm thinking of it, because otherwise I'll be sitting here for an hour talking about it and not do it. But that's a lot. 42.5 points, 463.5 yards per game. And, and I look further into the numbers. What also stands out, when you look at the season, Virginia Tech is +1 in turnover margin. That's modest, but it's +1. It doesn't indicate that they've been giving the ball away a lot on the course of the season. But in their last 4, they're -6. 1 turnover for the Virginia Tech defense, 7 turnovers by the offense, including 3 last week in the 38-14 loss to Miami, where the turnovers were determinative in the result of that game. Tech had a 14-10 lead in the second quarter and lost 38-14. And so, things are when things are going wrong for this program, they're going wrong in every single way possible. They lost their starting quarterback.